Welcome, everyone. We'll take about a minute to get everybody situated and in their seats for an exciting Pay It Forward event. Just want everybody to be able to get their volume up and get comfortable. We have a great session for you today. And I suspect it's a good thing that we are doing this one online today, because here in Fresno, we're having a little bit of rain. And it makes it a little messy to get to the Satellite Student Union when there's rain. And looking at the attendees today, we have people from all over the US attending. So there is a blessing that we get to do this as a Zoom webinar today. Well, I just wanted to thank you all for tuning in today. On behalf of the Laval Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and Fresno State, thank you for taking the time to attend today's webinar. I'm Mindy Laval, and I'm coordinator of Pay It Forward, a forum that started in 2016 as a way to bring together students at Fresno State with our community. The program is open to all students, regardless of their school, college, or discipline. It's truly an interdisciplinary opportunity. We've always tried to have a balance between community members and professionals and students so that we can really have a meaningful conversation and a networking opportunity. We have met 3 times per semester since 2016. And it's been great to share lunch. It's free to both community members as well as students, to share a lunch, to have meaningful conversations, and to listen to a speaker that has roots with the Central Valley and who wants to share his or her journey, both personally and professional journey, with our students. Well, since the outbreak of COVID-19, we have changed our format temporarily. We are hopeful that by no later than August 2021, we will be back in person at the Satellite Student Union. Until then, we will continue to have Zoom webinars in order to stay in contact with everyone and to continue to provide what we hope is valuable and meaningful information. Today, I'm delighted to bring together an incredible panel of 5 young professionals. Each have graduated from Fresno State between 2011 and 2017. And each have participated in the Claude Laval and Betty Lou Laval Entrepreneur Mentorship Program, known as EMP, a 1-year program available to all Fresno State students that connects students on one-on-one basis with a mentor in our community, and also allows each student to build upon their entrepreneurial skill set. Today's speakers have each taken a really unique career path post-graduation and have utilized that entrepreneurial mindset to grow both personally as well as professionally. This engaging group share a distinct list of traits, including tenacity, passion, enthusiasm, curiosity, and a willingness to proactively seek opportunities. They have all been students and are graduates of Fresno State. So for the students in our audience today, they have sat in your seats. They have been students, and they have tried to make the most of their university experience while also dreaming about their future. I will introduce each of the 5 speakers, and they will take about 10 minutes each to share with you their journeys. As we're going through the presentation, please note any questions that you might have for these speakers in the Q&A section of your Zoom screen. I think you probably are all familiar with it, but it's at the bottom of your screen, and you can type in any question that you might have. At the end of the session, we will bring back all 5 students, or graduates, excuse me, bring back all 5 young professionals for a question and answer period of time. And we will try to get through all of the questions if time permits, and I'm hoping to have at least 15 minutes to do that. I would like to introduce today our first panelist, Caden Jones. Kaden graduated in 2017 and is one of our most recent graduates. Upon graduating, Kaden's first leg of her journey took her to Chicago to begin her tenure with PepsiCo. Today, she is a client success project manager for AskWonder.com, a research tech startup. Kaden currently lives in New York, and I'm thrilled, as I told her, I wanted to bring her back from New York or Chicago, where she was prior to that, to participate in Pay It Forward, and I'm so thrilled that she's with us today. So Kaden, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mendy. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here, especially with you, the students. It is truly an honor to be here with you. Let's talk about life after college. Quick stats. Born and raised, Fresno, California, Valley kid, Fresno State, class of 2017, business management major, marketing minor. It's been 3.5 years since college. The first 1.5 years I worked for PepsiCo, Gatorade specifically. When I graduated, I moved directly to Chicago to work at their headquarter office, was quickly promoted to New York to work in account management in the field. Very quickly, a couple months actually into that role, I quit. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't handle it. It wasn't what I wanted to do. With no plan, but a hope to still stay in New York City, my dream city, I sought for opportunities, right? I landed at a fantastic startup that I still work at today. So it's been 2 years. I started as a sales development representative, which is, and there's so many names for that, but essentially cold calling. And then after that, moved into client success, project management, which is where I sit today, as Mindy mentioned, doing a lot of product growth, strategy, hacking type things these days, which is a lot of fun. So that was like the kind of the high level context that I wanted to give to y'all before we kind of dived into maybe some of the lessons there within. This is real life, right? And I wanted to share with you kind of what my journey has been as authentically as I possibly could. So I want to get you some depth, but I also want to make this kind of fun. I'm a huge Drake fan, so I'm going to use Drake album titles as like signposts for this conversation. So we're going to start with So Far Gone. I was pretty far gone entering college. What I mean is I had done an excellent job at internalizing all these external ideas of who I was supposed to be. I was supposed to be successful. And these ideas of success, I just pulled them in and I made them mine, even though they weren't necessarily what I wanted for myself. At the time, I really prioritized a lot of money, a great title, a great company, like name recognition company, and living in a huge city. And anyone at the time would tell you that I wanted to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And like, you couldn't tell me anything different. And I did a really good job, at setting myself up on that trajectory to do that. I was pretty out of touch with who I was and what I wanted for myself. Thank Me Later, next album. I'm really grateful for entrepreneurship and my exposure to entrepreneurship in college. I didn't realize it at the time, but it is something I'm certainly very grateful for, very thankful for now, especially working in a startup. What do I mean by that? The vocabulary. I took Entrepreneurship 81 and I learned words like product market fit, MVP, lean canvas model, all these interesting new words to me that I hadn't learned in other classes. I was really intrigued. I also thought the entrepreneurial mindset was something of interest, my Slack there, something of interest, right? My dad is an entrepreneur. He runs his own business. So I saw the lows and the highs of what it meant to be an entrepreneur. So it wasn't something that I wanted to do, at least at the time. But I did identify with being ambitious, with being driven, tenacious, curious, all those different things. And that was enough for me to want to seek more information at the time. So I joined EMP. Fantastic experience. My mentor was Claude, and I still call him when I have big ideas. I call him for that challenge, for that really, really great intellectual discussion that just pushes me further than I sometimes push myself. So very much so a lasting impact, that program. Take Care. Whew. So I told you, right, that I wanted to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I mean, gunning for it, right? Went to Chicago, did a really good job, got promoted to New York, which was the role folks wanted, right? I was in a program, a rotational program, so I was up against 10 different people in the country, and that was the role that like everyone wanted. So I really thought I was like doing it. And I got to New York, and I don't know, there was something about the pause that I was able to take that it just it really showed me that this is not what I wanted to do. One day, it was like the last week of work at PepsiCo for me. I was just sitting in my home office, just like staring at a wall. And I was just like, how did we get here? How did we get here? Is this really what I want to do? Like, what happened? Sadly, that career at PepsiCo ended with a couple of phone calls just telling folks, like, I really can't do this. I built such great relationships that folks understood. They saw that there was probably something else that I wanted to do. I just couldn't even see it for myself. So shout out to having really good community. From there, I told you I didn't have a plan, but I did have intention. My intention was to find opportunities, find communities, find spaces where I felt that I identified with some sort of purpose, right? That I felt really good about what I was doing. Let's just start there, right? Do I believe in what I'm doing? I didn't drink Gatorade the whole time I worked at Gatorade. So I figured maybe, let's start with something that I can actually identify with. So when I went out to interview with different companies, I thought, I don't want to do Fortune 500 again. I don't know if I want to do corporate. Maybe I should tap into this entrepreneurial startup stuff that I learned about. Interviewed with a CEO who just blew my mind with what he wanted to do in the world. Wonder's mission is to empower the curious, making knowledge explorable and accessible. And the first time I heard that, I was like, yeah, I need to be on that team. And then he told me a little bit more about what he wanted to do at Wonder, the team, to get there. And I was like, absolutely. We do research, by the way, and it's super cool. I could spend 1,000 minutes on that one. But also to say, I found a space where I really felt that I could contribute in a way that I felt good, that I felt that there was a purpose, that the things that I was doing, I felt like served a greater purpose for not just my team, but for the greater good. And that, I needed that direction. I began to get in touch with who I was and what I wanted for myself outside of what other people wanted for me. Nothing was the same. I mean, truly game changing when you start to take a step back, realize people want things for you. You want to please those people. I mean, it's just how it is, at least in my life, that's how it was. And when I took a step back and thought, what is it that I want? I just felt so much freer. And what was more is I went from just understanding myself at a particular point in time to amassing tools and resources and just the know-how to connect with myself moment to moment. The things that I want change. The direction that I want to go in may change day to day. The good news is I've been able to spend some time just getting in touch with, or learning rather, how to get in touch with myself so I can understand, how I want to orient myself day to day. Huge shout out to therapy. It's funny, when I first moved to New York and I was trying to make friends with some girls, they were mentioning, hey, my therapist told me XYZ, and the other girl's like, yeah, my therapist says something like that too. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's highly personal. You guys go to therapy? And they looked at me and they're like, you don't? And that was the first time peer pressure made sense in my life, right? Go to therapy. It's a really great opportunity to learn how to get in touch with yourself moment to moment. I've learned really quickly in engaging in those processes, those therapeutic, reflective, examination type processes, not just therapy, but meditation, yoga, those things that give you pause, that you can access calm wherever, right? Regardless of the ups and downs, you can remain grounded in who you are. And that is priceless, right? And I'm so glad that I came across that in my journey. Lastly, if you're reading this, it's too late. It's not too late, right? If you're listening to this webinar, it's certainly not too late. I want to share something that I recently discovered kind of in closing here. You can do whatever you want to do with your life if two things remain true. One is that you are capable. And if you need to hear it today, you are capable. Two, if you believe you are capable, right? I can't help you with that one, but man, you can control that, right? So if you are capable, which you are, and if you begin to believe that you are capable of doing things, and then back that up with this idea of getting in touch with who you are and just knowing how to get in touch with yourself moment to moment, what a life, right? Enjoy the ride. And that's what I'm doing right now. There are lows, there are highs, but I know how to access my calm. I know how to access my peace moment to moment. So enjoy your ride.
Hayden, thank you so much. And let me see if I'm on. Well, yeah, I'm not on mute. Thank you so much, and can't wait to come back at the end, and I'm sure there'll be some questions. Our next panelist is Michael Finn. Mike graduated in 2013 and is currently serving as the Director of Sales for the Almond Company. Mike has spent most of his years since graduating in international sales, one of my first loves, and has had the opportunity to live both in London as well as in Egypt. Today, Mike resides in Fresno, and I'm so happy that he's been able to join us today. Mike, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Mindy. Kaden, that was fantastic. My story really is I'm a Valley kid myself, born and raised in Bakersfield for the most part. I came to Fresno State to get a degree in agriculture business because that's what I knew. That's really what I loved. And kind of going through school, I was kind of just going through the motions. And I stumbled upon the entrepreneur program through the catalog one day. And I think it was Entrepreneurship 101, the intro to entrepreneurship class. And I found it, I took the class, and I actually got an F. So I failed it the first time. I didn't take it serious enough. My priorities weren't straight. And I realized at that point, I couldn't take any more entrepreneurship classes if I didn't retake Entrepreneurship 101. So I retook it. I sat in the front of the class. I got an A in the class, and I realized at that point, I want a double major now. I want to do agriculture business with another major in entrepreneurship. Talked to one of the teachers, and they said, you really should join the mentor program instead because you're going into your senior year here. And I applied, I got in, and I engaged so much more in the mentor program than I probably ever did in a classroom, just because it was more practical to me. I was hearing it from people who were doing it. I identified with it much more than I identified with the classroom. So I really got engaged in it. Claude Laval was one of my mentors as well as a gentleman by the name of Ryan Turner, who was in the almond industry as well at the time. And through those relationships, I was able to, through the process of the mentor program, start to develop relationships outside of the program. And that's what really led me to kind of my career outside of college. So I ended up working with I still do work with a family called the Harris family. And when I started there, I started in their shipping and logistics department at basically the lowest level you could find, with the idea that there was a path for me to follow if I could cut it. And so really, I worked as hard as I could. I came in on Saturdays. I called the owner, Russell Harris, and on Saturdays, I wanted to ride around with him. I wanted to know, what do you know? How do you view your business? And so over a period of time, I then started managing the shipping and logistics department for the almond company. And that was probably one of my largest challenges. I was the youngest person in the department with people who knew a lot more than I did. And I was put in a role to manage them. It was very unstructured, very fly by the seat of your pants. And that was, I almost teetered on complete disaster at that point. But we kind of righted the ship. We put some structure in place. We put some metrics in place. We measured people's successes and failures, really. That was probably that's been one of the biggest learning experiences I've had. And I still try to work on how to work better with people. I think that's something we never learn in school. And it's been a huge challenge, I think, for a lot of people as well as myself. So my career continued to then develop, and I got the shipping department squared away. I then became the assistant to the vice president, which is kind of involved in buying and selling almonds from growers. So I started dabbling in that, and then an opportunity came for me to move to London to set up an office. And so I took that right away. I'd lived overseas before. I wanted to do it again, and London's in my opinion, the world's capital. So I just said, I have to do this. So I moved there. We had a staff at the time of about 3 people. I was there for 2 years. We now have 16 people that run that office or work at office. And again, I think one of the things that I did there that I did when I first started with Russell Harris was I worked as much as I could, as hard as I could. I really didn't come up for air because I knew that it was going to pay off at some point down the road. So I just kept on grinding through it. And I think that that was also one of the things I learned from the mentor program was the people who were very successful in that really, were completely 100% engaged in their business or their craft or whatever it is that they were doing. They were 100% bought in. So I embodied that while I was living in the UK. I came back going on 3 years now. And now I'm in charge of all of the buying and selling of almonds at the almond company now. Um, just for people's context, I graduated when I was 23 years old. I did 5 years in college. I had a good time, and I am now 31. It's been quite a journey, and I'm still learning quite a bit. So I would say, kind of in closing, the one thing that to the students that I would recommend is just work as hard as you can, especially if you really enjoy it. It comes a lot easier when you enjoy what you do. So thank you very much, Mindy.
Thank you, Mike. That was fabulous. And again, everyone who's in the audience today, please jot down your questions in the Q&A area, or if not the Q&A, in the chat, either one, whatever is more comfortable for you, because we'll have a good 15 minutes, hopefully at the end, where we can take all questions that you have. There are a few coming in now, and it's going to be really interesting. Thank you again, Mike, and I'll turn it over to our next speaker, who is Cody Wells. Cody is a graduate of Fresno State and graduated in 2016. And he has been an entrepreneur well before graduation. He started his business while he was at Fresno State, I think in the year 2015. And Cody and his team have built an incredible business that has really a strong installed customer base throughout California in commercial upholstery. I didn't mention the name of his company. It's called Wells Upholstery. And he has tapped into some very high profile customers. And most of his success, I think, is because of his drive and his enthusiasm and his attention to quality and a great team. So Cody lives in Fresno and operates out of here. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce Cody Wells. Cody.
Thank you very much, Mindy, and thank you for having me, everyone. So yes, my name is Cody Wells. I am president of Wells Upholstery, Inc. I graduated college in 2016. I just turned 28 years old. My major was in business with an option in entrepreneurship. I'm very grateful for everything that Fresno State offered to me. My time at Fresno State, I actually was blessed and fortunate to be a part of the Entrepreneurship Mentor Program, which I give a lot of credit to, the foundation of which I stand on, certain characteristics that I grew personally, professionally as an entrepreneur. To explain a little bit about what my company does is we specialize in automotive upholstery and commercial upholstery. So from typical repairs, like in your car, when you're sitting in and out of your car seat will begin to tear or the foam will wear. Well, you would bring it to an upholstery shop like mine, and we would repair that for you. We also do complete custom or original interior renovations in hot rods. I'm actually proud to say one of our hot rods, a 57 Chevy Bel Air, actually won first place in the vintage days for Fresno State this year. We actually, even more so of our niche is actually in the commercial industry. So we specialize in designing, fabricating, and installing custom seating. So an architect or a designer or customer will have an idea for a type of custom seating that'll be up against the wall. And we'll go in there and we'll work from them from the very beginning, all completely new construction. Most of our work is all throughout the Bay Area. So from San Jose up to San Francisco, up to the Napa Valley area, down to Oakland, all the way around the Bay Area. Even though we're Central Valley located, we've been blessed with great opportunities to go throughout the Bay Area. Our client list has reached Apple. We've done 2 projects for Google, seating area and acoustical paneling for Google. I have no pictures of those because we're not allowed to take pictures of the work that we did. Because and then the other one we did was Amazon. We actually ended up going up to Sacramento and designing a custom seat for Amazon. Our largest project to date was actually for Facebook that we're very proud of. It was up towards San Francisco, and it was two 8-story buildings side by side, and each floor had custom seating and acoustical paneling. Now the idea of is how did it all get started? So as a little kid, I actually grew up in the upholstery industry. My dad taught me how to sew when I was barely 12 years old. I remember spending more time playing hooky out of school than than it was actually being in school, because all I wanted to do was be like my father. My mother raised me, and my father inspired me. And so I remember at 8 or 9 years old, my dad would have me pulling staples out of the booth for Sal's Mexican restaurant, which is a local restaurant here and still our client. We would do hot rods together, sofas, everything. And at a young age, I just wanted to be everything that my father was. Well, where my story is a little unique was when I was 15, both my parents actually passed away in a car accident. And you learn to grow up. You learn to grow up quick. One day my parents were here, the next day were gone. And at 15 years old, you start to figure out like what the heck am I going to do with my life. And I ended up growing a responsibility, a lot of independency, trying to figure it out that if I wanted to be someone someday, I got to go out there and do it. And I had a lot of years of grief. I had to peel back. I explained grief like an onion. You have to peel back the layers until you can fully discover who yourself is. And at 15 years old, I didn't know what I was going to do, but one thing that was instilled in me was the trade that my father taught me, which was upholstery. I did not have aspirations to go to school because in my elementary years, I was in special ed, speech classes, reading classes, everything. But I knew that if school was going to be a challenge to me, I knew that I would want to start. I feel like through challenges, you grow the most. And yes, education was definitely a difficult time for me, but I went in there anyways. I attended Fresno City and Clovis Community Hospital, or not hospital, Clovis Community College, which was Willow International at the time. And then once I started at Fresno State, I learned what the word entrepreneurship was. In my eyes, entrepreneurship means that the sky is the limit. Some people will hold themselves down to the clouds, but with the entrepreneurial mindset, if you believe it, you can achieve it. And I truly believe that I was meant for something positive in this world. Malcolm X has a quote: "The future belongs to those who prepare for it today." And at my time when I started Fresno State, I had to figure out, well, how am I going to prepare for my future? That's where I was introduced to the Entrepreneurship Mentor Program, where it connected me with great mentors, all Central Valley business leaders. And during my time at EMP, I actually was blessed and fortunate to be awarded the Betty Lou Laval scholarship. It was a total at that time $2,500. And I also at the time I also wrecked my truck, which the insurance paid me $4,500 for. Instead of fixing my truck, I ended up doing the mechanics myself, pulled out a couple dents. So a total of $7,000. I started my business actually out of the garage of my house. This was in 2015. Now, while I was attending Fresno State, I actually got to meet a friend who then became my girlfriend, who later became my fiance, my college sweetheart. And 2 years ago, I married her. Now, at the same time of marrying her, I had to make my house into a home. So I ended up getting a shop 2 years ago and moving my company out of the garage of my house into a shop. And now 2 years later, in 2020, we have outgrown the shop that we're at, and we're currently in the process of even buying the building that we're at. So that continuous growth of wanting to be more than what you were yesterday is what has really fueled my desire to be something different that this world needs. My father teaching me upholstery, I'm proud to say that I was able to put his last name on my business and execute the trade of the art that he allowed me to, he raised me in doing. Um, I, uh, I have to say one thing that if anyone can bring from my conversation is mental toughness. Mental toughness is everything that has been able to assist me in being the person that I am today. Just having a positive outlook on life. Um, trying to figure out of where you want to be, looking at that path, I knew at a young age, my father wouldn't want me to say boohoo me and go in the corner and cry my eyes out. I had to look at that stairway and where that goal was, where I wanted to go, and go step by step where I wanted to be. Now there are going to be challenges. There's going to be things, obstacles that are in your way. But I just feel like growth and comfort, they don't coexist. You're not supposed to be comfortable. And if you're comfortable, that means you're not growing. And so for me as a professional, I wanted to go out there on a limb and try to figure out, like, how can I turn this old school industry into something new? From starting out in my garage to now we have a team of 10 people. So 5 years ago, we're now 10 people strong and exceeding sales over $1 million, which is a true blessing, and trying to figure out, like, wow, hey, it can be done. And if you do believe it, you can achieve it. Tara Banks, I have this quote from Tara Banks that says, "I'm competitive with myself. I always try to push past my own borders." And I feel like limitations don't live in my mindset. And I would encourage each one of us to view that. Don't live in the prison walls that are in between your ears. The sky is the limit, and if you really want it, you got to go out there and get it. Um, I truly believe that there's also three different types of people. People who let things happen, people who watch things happen, and people who make things happen. And my motto here at Wells Upholstery is, what you imagine, we make happen. Driving from that make it happen attitude. And when you pursue your personal and professional lives, whether you're an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, you're gonna have to face those challenges and push past them. I definitely thank you for your time being here, and I look forward to any questions that come around. Please feel free to also look up Wells Upholstery Inc. And feel free to always email me or call me if you need anything. I'm always willing to help.
Cody, thank you so much. It's
Thank
been a
you,
lot
Mindy.
of fun, not only watching Cody, but all of our speakers today go throughout their journey. And I really appreciate you being with us. And I know that there are going to be questions at the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Nicole Warmerdam. She is also a graduate from Fresno State got her degree in 2016 and currently resides in the Netherlands. Thankfully, Nicole is currently visiting her family in the Central Valley and has been able to join us without a significant time difference in our Zoom webinar. Nicole is a CPA and began her career in San Francisco for PwC, an international accounting firm. She has then moved to Europe to work for PwC and later joining Rabobank in Amsterdam as a corporate finance advisory associate. Please join me in welcoming Nicole.
Thank you, Mindy, and thank you to the team that put this day together today. I think it's really awesome that we get to do this, and I'm feeling very honored to be able to speak to you all today. So, as Mindy mentioned, I graduated in 2016 with a Bachelor's of Science in Accounting and a certificate in Finance. And in my senior year, I was lucky enough to be a part of the EMP program. Now, today I would like to talk you through kind of where I've gone with my career, what that journey's looked like, and then tie it back into how did I get there, what Fresno State gave to me, and things I wish I knew while I was a student there. So my career started in San Francisco. I joined PwC in their audit practice, and I decided to do this because I wanted to learn the language of business, and that's accounting. So I went to PwC to begin my career and start learning about corporate life. However, I had always dreamed to move to Europe. So I'm from Visalia originally, but my grandparents had moved here from the Netherlands. And I had always been interested in their story and always been interested in going to see what it was like living where they grew up. And so I knew PwC had an office in Amsterdam, and that became my target and my goal. So during my time in San Francisco, I worked my way into finding a network that could tap me into the Amsterdam network. And luckily, I was able to make a connection and found myself moving to Amsterdam just around 2.5 years ago now. However, I knew accounting wasn't my dream. Kind of like Kaden said, she had this aha moment. Well, I had my aha moment and I did not want to stay in accounting. So I decided to look for a new role. And I found myself going to Rabobank, which is an internationally known bank. And I think a lot of people in the Valley knew it from banking for agricultural purposes. But they're actually a Dutch bank and headquartered in the Netherlands. So I moved to that team where I'm now part of the investment banking practice. And I sit as an associate trying to drive strategic dialogues with some of the biggest food and agricultural clients of the bank. So these are your Nestle's, Coca-Cola's, ADMs of the world. So I do a lot of analysis now, and I get to be part of very, very interesting conversations with CEOs and CFOs of some of the biggest companies in the world, which is incredible and has been a fantastic opportunity. So I'm feeling extremely grateful to be where I am today, but I couldn't have done any of it without my time at Fresno State. So a few things I'd like to highlight that I have grown to appreciate about Fresno State, and I'd like all of you to really appreciate and value while you experience your college career there. So first of all, Fresno State provided me with an absolute top-notch education. I went into accounting and I had all of these peers from super prestigious schools, and I was immediately self-conscious and worried, oh, how am I ever gonna keep up? But to be honest, I figured out very quickly that the education I received at Fresno State, which was so hands-on and so project-oriented, set me apart from all of my peers. They had received such a theoretical education that they had no idea what they were doing, whereas I felt like my accounting courses had given me complete knowledge of the things that I needed to do for audit. And that was really incredible. So I really think it's important to not just roll your eyes at that next project, but truly try to see how it can educate you in the true business sense of the word, and like how it will prepare you to perform your career in the future, because it really is a valuable experience. The other thing that was so important about my time at Fresno State was Fresno's network. So I, like Mindy said, I was part of EMP, which was a fantastic program. And I was also part of the Craig School Mentorship Program. So I was really trying to tap into every single community member that I possibly could while I was at Fresno State. And let me tell you, Fresno has one of the best and most accessible networks that you could possibly imagine. When you move into a big city, it is very difficult to get to know who you need to know and actually get time with those people. But in Fresno, honestly, you have CEOs, CFOs of big companies that are willing and wanting to speak to students and to help them make that next step of the journey. So I cannot highlight enough how important it is to get yourself out there and tap into this network, because it is truly incredible. So just from my experience, when I moved to the Netherlands and I decided to make my job switch, it was actually an individual from the Central Valley, my old boss who I worked for while I was a sophomore in college. He runs a private equity firm called AGR Partners, which sat in Visalia and has since moved to Sacramento. But he was in Amsterdam and we decided to grab dinner. And I was telling him how I was not sure I wanted to stay in accounting and I was thinking about moving in my career. And lo and behold, he had a managing director he was friends with who sat at Rabobank in Amsterdam, and he made the connection. Next thing you know, I was able to get a job. And the fact that a Fresno connection can reach all the way across the world was incredible to me. It does exist, and the network is just so fantastic. So please do tap into it. I think it's extremely important. Now, the last few things I want to speak with you today are things I wish I knew while I was a student. So the first thing that I wish I knew was there are so many ways to get to your end goal. I thought I needed to take all the right classes, be a part of all the right organizations, get all those things ticked off on my resume. And while they were important, I do think now reflecting that I should have spent more time on the things I love to do. So while I was a student, I, in my spare time, did some graphic design for nonprofits, and I really love to do design. Well, in my job today, I can't tell you how important it is that I had develop these design skills, because now I'm putting together big slide decks and stories for our clients to try to help them understand why our ideas make sense and where we can help them. And I need to create stories that really speak to them. And I use my design skills that I just did for fun in college in order to portray these stories in the most well-spoken and well-received manners. Another important thing that I wish I knew while I was a student is the fact that soft skills and your curiosity and willingness to learn are what's going to set you apart in the future. So although every single technical skill you develop is highly important for specific roles you go into, technical skills are really becoming a commodity business now. And every single employer I've gone to has really highlighted this fact, and that it's truly how you present yourself and how you are able to communicate with others that's going to set you apart. So I really suggest that while you're developing your technical skills in university, it's really important that you also acknowledge the fact that you should be getting out there, socializing, meeting new people, and tapping into this network that I mentioned previously, because those are the things that will set you apart in the future, and those are the things that will help you land that role that you truly want and truly dream for. And with that, I think I will hand it back to Mendy and hand it to the next speaker.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Really appreciate it. And like I said previously, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. We have quite a few that have come in, but I think we're going to have a good amount of time at the end of today to address them. So don't hesitate to put them in the Q&A section that's at the bottom of your Zoom webinar. Okay, turning over our program to our final speaker today. I am so excited to have Eric Santos with us. Eric graduated in 2011, so he has been out of school the longest. And since that time, he's accomplished so much. Eric graduated, like I said, in 2011, and since receiving his degree, has co-founded 2 successful businesses, Benchmark Intelligence and HubX. He has authored a book called Shoot Your Shot and hosts the podcast On a Ride. Eric resides in Fresno, and I am so thrilled to have him with us and bringing it on strong for our 5th presentation. Thank you so much, Eric.
No problem. Thank you so much, Mendy. Appreciate that. Promise that intro probably makes me sound a little cooler than I really am. But thank you everyone for attending. My name is Eric Santos. I graduated 2011. I'm going to cover like 3 kind of main key points and lessons learned. And the first one is that it all comes full circle. And I'm saying that one now towards the end because the easiest way for me to articulate that lesson is just by telling my story. So I grew up in Visalia, California, went to Mount Whitney High School. I attended College of the Sequoias after, because I was the first in my family to go to college, or at least a 4-year university. So after COS, initially went there. I thought college was a pipe dream. Didn't know too many people that went to university in Visalia. Then I transferred to Fresno State, chose entrepreneurship as my option. Never quite knew what I wanted to do growing up, but I would always watch crime movies as a kid, and I like the idea of being a boss, and that's not what an entrepreneur is by any means. I had to learn that the hard way, that you're held accountable to so many people along the way. But those kind of romantic notions is what made me want to choose entrepreneurship and business, as bad as a reasoning that was early on in life. But then, it initially changed as I got into Fresno State and was around fellow entrepreneurs in the EMP program. And Fresno State and EMP program really changed my life. Because again, as mentioned, grew up not knowing a lot of entrepreneurs or people really doing things that they're doing now, like colleagues and friends of mine. So after Fresno State, actually quick thing with EMP, we went on a tour downtown, I believe. And at the time, Mayor Ashley Swearnigan, she said that there was a company hiring called Decipher. And I applied for that, and Decipher was a market research software company. So they would do surveys and would collect about 1 billion data points per year by the time I left there. But I got a job there right before graduating college, and I worked there for 4-5 years, doing various positions, all on the customer side, so customer success, sales, project management, account management, and so on. And yeah, I also met the CEO, whose name is Jamin Bazil, and kind of going back to the original point, all comes full circle. He becomes an important part later in the story. And also one other important piece of EMP program was the first entrepreneurship class I took was taught by Dr. Stern's 101, but they had a assistant teacher named Eric Naselrode, and he's an important part of the story again. But those two people I both met because of Fresno State and the EMP program, and they both become an integral part of my story as I continue. So worked at Decipher for several years. I started a bunch of like side companies. Like I've always been into technology since Decipher is a technology company, and we and my one of my closest friends, whose name is Kenneth Kuntz, and I actually met him originally at Fresno State and then rekindled with him at Decipher. We would work on various technology companies, but it was more like a side hustle because we had full-time jobs, and then we'd work on these after hours. And my major was on entrepreneurship. So although I really liked working at Decipher, I felt like I was doing my education a disservice by never jumping full into entrepreneurship. So by this time I'm like in my mid-20s, and I hadn't really been an entrepreneur for full time yet. I was making my way up the corporate ladder, but something was really missing. And about the time I turned 25, kind of had a quarter life crisis and decided that I really want to make this work. And so February 19th, 2015, my co-founders and I left Decipher. So all of us worked together there. And then we started our company, Benchmark Intelligence, which did customer feedback for brick and mortar stuff. So restaurants, to this day, EECU is a customer of ours and a few other large chains. And we moved to Colorado to attend a startup accelerator. For those that don't know what a startup accelerator is, think of it kind of like MBA on steroids. Investment firms invest into a few companies, and they try to get them to do a year's worth of work in 3 to 4 months. And the way they do that is by giving them funding, access to mentorship, and they tend to invest outside the area. The idea is that you move to wherever they're going. So in this case, it was Boulder, Colorado. And that because you're away from friends, family, and distractions, you just grind like you've never done before. So we went through one in Boulder, Colorado, and then we went through one after in Cincinnati, Ohio, called the Brandry, which was a top 10 accelerator. So there was 1,000 companies that would apply each year and only 10 get in. And then after that, we got a $20K investment from the first and a $50K from the second. Traditional tech startups, the model is you're supposed to raise venture capital, build a product, and scale. It doesn't always work that way. And we tried raising some money. I tried raising $1 million and failed pretty bad at it right after graduating the accelerator, because we had an MVP / prototype, but we didn't have any real users or customers, and no investors were willing to give us any money. And then I had a mentor. By this time I moved back to Fresno. I had a mentor that told me that they were going to help fund the business for 3 months as a gift, and it was about $2,000 total. So they're gonna give us $6,000. But the idea was I could not talk to any investors during this time. All I could do is focus on sales, because at this time I was just so focusing on raising funding. I've never actually got any customers for our software. So for that 3 months, I just grinded. And then I initially got a few small restaurants, and then I landed Deli Delicious, who's been one of our customers for years up until recently. And we helped them scale from when we worked with them 20 something locations to 60 plus, I think, when we finished our relationship with them. And because of that, I was able to make our company more approachable and interesting for investors. And then going back to my teacher, my first class of Fresno State, Dr. Stearns, and the assistant professor, Eric Naselrode, fast forward to then Eric Naselrode now is a venture capitalist, and him and his firm, San Joaquin Capital, invested $500,000 into my company. And we used that $500,000 to grow, and a lot of growing lessons. In all transparency, I spent about $250,000 in 3 to 4 months and had nothing to show for it. So that was kind of hard. And then we ran out of money quickly. And then because the investment was tranched, so we had to hit certain sales goals to get the other pieces. long story short, from a lot of trials and tribulations, we eventually got all of the funding. We got the company profitable and so on. But then the company still exists to this day. We still service hundreds of locations around the US, but I am not working on it in a full-time capacity. And the reason why is I am now co-founder of a company called Hub UX. And kind of going back to it all comes full circle with Eric Nielserode, who was initially a teacher of mine at Fresno State, Entrepreneurship 101. So the first class I have, and to a few years later, he's writing a $500,000 check. It's pretty cool when it talk about it comes full circle. And I had another moment like that a year and a half ago. So at Decipher, I was one of 250 or 300 employees. So this is a mid-sized technology company. It wasn't a small stage startup. And the CEO of that company, his name is Jamin Brazil. And he grew, a very successful company. They were acquired by a company called Focus Vision in 2015, right around the time I left. And Focus Vision, he eventually became CEO of that company as well. And Focus Vision, at its peak, was valued in the high hundreds of millions of dollars privately. And then about a year and a half ago, I ran into Jamin at Rio Acebo place. He let me know that he was recently thinking about me and that he started a new company and asked me if I would be interested. And I eventually became his co-founder. So with Benchmark Intelligence, my previous company, it was still profitable, but sales had kind of plateaued the last year. And being in the position I am still, as now I'm 31 years old, but having still no mortgage to this day or no kids or marriage, I wanted to be in a place where I continued to take risk, and my company had plateaued for the last year or two. So I wanted to take this opportunity to then work with someone as a co-founder and that I've been looking up to for a decade. You got to understand, like, he hired me at 20 years old. I was one of hundreds of employees looking up to this man. And then 10 years later, I'm his co-founder. And Hub UX, we help market researchers find participants for studies. So we have built some AI that helps them do that. And we've total, the company has raised $750,000 in venture capital. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. And that's all the first lesson, which is all comes full circle. The last two, just going through them quickly. The second one is something you probably never hear, and it's called don't overvalue yourself. So it's always important to know your worth. But in 2017, I believe, I won the award called the Central Valley Venture Capital, I think that's the name of it, award, where it's a venture forum that I attended as a student, and it was pretty cool to win it eventually in 2017. At that event, I had actually an old teacher come up to me who was working for a company and said that they were interested in buying my company. We met with them. They made an they made an offer that was more than $1 million. And I wouldn't have got all of that amount if we sold it, but it would have been a nice 6-figure return because I had co-founders and investors, etc. And I wanted to take the number, but I relied on some advice from mentors. And at the end of the day, I make my own decision, so not blaming it for anyone else. But we rebutted, and we rebutted twice the number. And by the time 2 weeks had passed, and we decided actually the initial offer they made was fair, the offer actually went off the table. And so did all of that potential money. And then a liquidation event has never happened from that company, as I mentioned, still to this day. So that was a big opportunity that I lost out. But I think everything happens for a reason. I think that's why if I had sold that, maybe I would be doing something different, and I would not be a co-founder of Hub UX, where I feel I'm on a path to do even greater things. So that just lesson is don't overvalue yourself. And I don't mean to say I'm pessimistic about that, but I figure someone should be negative every once in a while in these type of things. And then the last one is just follow your North Star. I would say follow your heart, but I feel that sounds a little corny. Your North Star is your guiding principle. So a North Star is not necessarily an accolade or an amount of money, but it's the principle that guides your decisions that you make. For mine is freedom. So freedom financially, freedom to make the decisions I want in life, and then impact. So not just doing something that makes money, but then leaves an impact, whether it's in an industry, whether it's with people, and so on. So yeah, those are my lessons. Just remember, everything comes full circle. Always believe in yourself, but remember to not overvalue things. And then lastly, follow your North Star. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric. At this time, I'd like to have all of the panelists join us on their videos. And there have been so many different questions asked. I'm going to just start right away. And the first one is really to all of you. Could you share some strategies you usually use to overcome challenges? And I will let whoever wants to start, just throw up your hand and let's go for it.
I guess I'll go for this one. To start, maybe I like to ask other people that are older than me and are quite a bit more experienced than I am as to how they have tackled something similar to this, and then probably put it into the context of my situation. But I really do look for almost counsel from other people who've been in these scenarios.
Cody, did you have a point that you wanted to make?
Yeah, I had mentioned that that the challenges, when you face challenges, it really just depends on where you apply your focus. When a problem arises, I tend to use my focus being on the solution, right? I use an example of, in life, you're gonna hit roadblocks, you're gonna hit a wall, and sometimes that wall is so tall, but don't focus on how tall that wall is. Focus on trying to find a shovel to dig under it or find a ladder to climb over it. So it just really depends on your perspective in the challenge.
I have one more thing to add to that. I would say, I think what I like to do is just always maintaining a mentality of other people can do this. Why can't I do this? And if you keep that mentality, you'll always be able to succeed because you'll find the courage and the confidence to be able to overcome that challenge. So just maintain that kind of point of view.
Thank you all. I'll move on to the next question. As you look back at your time at Fresno State, is there anything that you wish you had learned that would prepare you for your career today? And why don't we go ahead and start with Kaden?
Something that I wish I would have learned while I was in school that I didn't learn. I think, and it's not to say that folks didn't try to teach it to me. I think it's just more of my bullheadedness, but I wish I would have really understood the whole concept of journey versus destination, right? I'm such a big proponent of that now, but at the time I really thought it's all about getting to whatever, point along the way. And I lost sight of what the journey was and how it's actually kind of amazing if you don't know every single step of the way. Life becomes an adventure at that point. You get to explore.
Anyone else like to jump in? Otherwise, we'll go on. There's so many questions. This is one that's pretty current because we're all facing it. How do you recommend or suggest socializing during the pandemic? And how do you take your current business or your current career and make sure that you're making the most out of your days as we continue to face COVID? Anyone want to take a stab? Okay, Kaden.
I live alone in New York City, so far away from my community. So, in terms of socializing, I think it's reach out, right? I know a lot of people kind of warm in terms of like that connection, but you can always turn up the heat, right? I think I've grown a couple of friendships during quarantine in a way that I would have never expected just through the use of technology. And in terms of like, I guess, shifting career and keep me honest in how I'm going about this, but I think I work with clients across different industries. Ad agencies, consultancies, just really runs the gamut where these folks are coming from. And it's really about leaning in, what I've understood, what I've seen, about leaning into the current environment. So if things are all online, right, what kind of skills, what kind of, what can you learn about this new environment? How can you then, get a sense for what's going on in this space, learn, find the ways that you can, find that competitive advantage for yourself and adapt.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would say, COVID kind of fast tracked a lot of, I think, things that automation unfortunately will probably do. And with that being said, many industries will always be around. Technology can't replace upholstery. It can't do a lot of things, but the way that these businesses communicate or service with the consumers is going to be a little different now because of that. And I think the world will have some behavioral changes with this, even when the world is back to normal per se. But I think it's just kind of utilizing technology to the best of your ability, and then taking that the things that you do now during COVID, because they'll probably be applicable even after, in terms of servicing clients and reaching consumers.
Have you had to change the way, all of this is open to all of you, have you had to change the way that you go about what you do every day in your position and in your career? You answered that, Eric, and I open it up to anybody else that would like to share, what has changed, and how have you felt about the adaptability to something new?
For me personally, what Caden said, like adapt. Like only the strongest are going to survive. So I know for me and my business, the way that people interact with textiles, like the materials that you sit on, we've actually partnered up with a vendor, a textile manufacturer, to figure out what the future of leather, vinyls, cloths actually looking post-COVID. So really, it's all in the forward thinking of like, how are we going to adapt to get through this?
Mike, I would be interested in knowing what happened. I mean, how has it affected your sales, both domestically and internationally?
I mean, it's affected, volume is good, so we're selling a lot. It's adversely affected price. So the price of almonds has been hammered really during all of this. And, my role is really to, interface with customers, travel. Part of my job is really going around the world and talking to these people, talking to our customers in different parts of the world. So one of the things that we have done now, since we can't travel, is we built a podcast room, and we started putting out podcasts every week. So once a week to our growers, and then once a month to all of our buyers. We started putting out a newsletter where we go out and film stuff in the field, so we can educate our growers on equipment, or we can educate our buyers on kind of where we're at in the harvest cycle, give them market perspective. So it's really, we've hired a full-time producer. So it's really changed the way that we interact with people. And I think it's actually been a lot better for our business, actually.
Anyone else?
I'll also chime in. So in the investment banking world, a lot of what we do is traveling to clients all over the globe and trying to make these personal connections and help them make their decisions. But in order to do that, we need to gain their trust. And it's very difficult to develop these strategic relationships while in a COVID world. But it has definitely accelerated how many conversations we have with the client, because there's just so many more opportunities to hop on a phone than there are to fly across the world and get in somebody's room. So I think it's both been a struggle because you don't have that face-to-face contact, but people are adapting and everybody's going through it. So everybody's in the same boat and everybody understands it. So when you reach out, it's very well received because people are having to do it too, so they understand it. And I think that's something that's very key. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Eric, did you want to add anything more to the conversation? You did a great job answering it before we got to this question, but is there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, nothing additional to add.
There are a couple of questions that have come in about your entrepreneurial mindset and skills that you have learned throughout your career or built upon during your career. This is a two-part question. What are the three things, or what are some of the things that you took away from the ENP program when you, after completing the year program? And the second one is, what skill sets do you think are the most critical to do what you're doing every day? And who would like to try that question first?
I'll go. I'll answer the first part of it latter, as I'm still trying to, as a graduated the longest ago. I'm trying to remember exactly what my mindset was post leaving EMP. I think for actually just answer that first, I think it was something where in hindsight, I realized how important it was and kind of like talking about some of the connections I made. I think almost maybe it was just if I felt like a sense of, I just felt like initially, I think I wanted the mentors just to give me the answers. So I think I was a little, jaded, or I thought I was going to come out with more. And it was just really dumb way to think that, I was 21 at the time. And then as I got older and realized the connections I made and the things I learned, that it really did help a lot. And I think it's one of those things, just like when you're an adult, you appreciate the things your parents do for you. And I think it's kind of, for me, it was a very similar thing with the mentorship. But in terms of skill set, the thing that I use every day is sales. I would stress that no matter what your industry is, sales is super important. Whether you're selling yourself, your vision, you're articulating the services you could provide, etc. I mean, I have co-founders that with these companies, they've built these beautiful, amazing technologies. I've only got where I'm at in life because I'm okay with words, and just understanding, how to sell. And then most importantly, gaining empathy, because it's not just about a transaction or trying to win something. Empathy allows you to, empathize with investors, customers. When you're building a product, empathize with the people that the pain points your product is solving, and so on. So sales with empathy being a close second skill set, if that is a skill set.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
I would have to, I'm a real believer in your network is your net worth. It's who you know. It's not how many dollars are in your bank account. It's the relationships that you have. And I'm very keen on to cultivating relationships, not just, personally, but professionally, in my industry. The EMP program, the Entrepreneurship Mentor Program, allowed me to be paired with Central Valley business leaders that, I just went and called them. Hey, how you doing? You want to meet at Starbucks? Let's go meet. That is something that I would never be able to give, I absolutely love about my time at Fresno State. That was the biggest, most important thing I did.
Thank you, Cody. Kaden?
Yeah, I'll try to answer the two parts there quickly. One, what did I get out of ENP? I mean, a ton of things. I'm not really sure how to concisely say this one, but I learned how to identify the fast thinkers, the people that were thinking forward. I was around a ton of people that were just smart. And I learned to kind of follow them in terms of where they were thinking, what they were saying, ask questions of them, be around people that sharpened me, right? Iron sharpening iron. So whether that was the students who I was in the cohort with or the mentors, just learning to kind of identify those people and have those conversations has been key, as I've just, to Cody's point, building out network, identifying those folks. And what makes me successful today, I think a big part of that is cognitive flexibility. Flexibility in general, but cognitive flexibility. I am capable. Whether I have the capability today or I have to build it, I know that I can because I can be flexible.
Great, thank you.
I think one of the other things I think that I came away from the mentor program with was a confidence. I feel like as a college student going into a room with a lot of people who are more successful than you, had different life experiences in terms of the mentor, as well as some of your fellow mentees in the program, I think that it really allowed me to have more confidence after I graduated the EMP program. When I came into the professional world as a younger person in a world with people who were older than me, I think that it really gave me more confidence in rooms where I was the most junior.
I have a couple more. I think we have time for probably one or two more. One question that's come, well, it's been asked by a couple people. How do you stay motivated, and what are your tips for productivity in everyday life? And this could be pre-COVID. It doesn't have to be during COVID, or it can be during these crazy times that we're in.
I'll start with that one.
Okay.
I think making small goals for yourself and almost deadlines, at least that's how I work. So I like to say, okay, I want to achieve this by this time. And even if that's just tasks that I need to complete for work or overarching goals that I want to achieve, promotion I want to hit, whatever it is, I think you need to set specific steps that you can reach in order to keep that endurance up. Because if you don't have these small goals to reach, it can be really intimidating and frustrating to try to achieve something because it just seems too far away. So making tangible and real goals that you can, and steps that you can take, I think is extremely, extremely important.
I think for me, it's been, it's physical. It starts physically. So exercise, first of all, I need to sweat in the morning. I need to get after it. I need to go run or do something. And then that helps later in the day where I start becoming more productive. For some reason, that just works in my brain where if I physically exert myself early in the day, I'm much more organized. I think better. I plan better. I'm in a better mood, especially during COVID. I mean, especially when a lot of things are shut down. I think it's really, it's been the best outlet I've had.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I would say just, practicing accountability as much as you can, especially when people are, working remote. That can be difficult if you're not necessarily having one-on-ones in person and so on. And kind of on that note of like accountability, I used to think I was highly fueled by my chip on my shoulder, like as an entrepreneur. And then I learned later in life that you can only go so far with that. And instead of trying to, prove haters wrong, I think it's better to validate those that believe in you. And for me, those are the investors, co-founders, customers, family members, etc. And some of those can keep me accountable. Again, like my co-founders, my investors, etc. And just trying to, as Nicole said, set goals and then adhere to them, not just with yourself, but with other people. I think that's very helpful.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, I'm going to throw out the last question, but I'm going to leave it open-ended. And we have a few minutes. And for the students we have students with us today in the audience that are on all different disciplines around Fresno State. I mean, that's the beauty of this program, is that it's interdisciplinary. We have engineers, and we have ag business, we have math and science, we have the Craig School, we have education. We have a full range of disciplines with us, and they're looking at you and probably like me in awe of your gumption and your drive and all of the interesting stops you made on your journey so far. What is the one last thing you would like to share with the students before we have to end today's program? Is there any words of wisdom that you would like to pass on that you haven't already, because you've provided us with so much good information, but is there anything else that you would like to share with the students? Because my goal for this program was to provide our students at Fresno State with the knowledge that there's so many possibilities. And there isn't one way to go about any one career. It's how you forge your path, because each of you have done it differently and uniquely. And I just wanted to give you that opportunity to share one more insight before we have to wrap up.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I was a part of some program for a summer, my freshman summer, and someone told me, write a list of all the things that you would love to do, how you would like to spend your time if like money wasn't a thing. You just had all the money in the world. And I was like, oh, okay, very naively. I write the list, and I come back to him. I'm like, hey, wrote this list. He was like, okay, now why aren't you doing the things on this list? And I was shocked, right? And from that point forward, I have been working through that list. Like, what do you like to do? Identify those things. That's really the only place you got to start, and then move from there.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll go. I was talking to like a younger relative that was still in school, and I said one of the things that I envy of them is like when you're in school, and again, it's different with everyone's school. Some people go to school later in life, but for the most part, when you're early in school, just kind of the naiveness of you can do anything in the world. And I say that with like the most respect, because you're not quite like jaded yet from the world and the work and all that stuff. I would say never lose that. You know, I've always done best to do that, like in school, just like you have all these options, especially like in, you know, business major entrepreneurship, where it's a little more open-ended than you're going to go and do this exact thing. But whatever, you know, whatever crazy thing that you're dreaming of while in school, just like try to keep that healthy level of naivety, I guess is how you say that. And just, yeah, never stop being naive. And I mean that again, in the most positive way.
Understood. Great point. Cody?
I would also like to mention one thing that my dad instilled in me as a father when I was younger was the idea of what doesn't exist in my vocabulary. The words can't, quit, and impossible. Those are all reasons not to try, and those are limitations that you put on yourself. You can either approach your life providing yourself with a victim mindset of uh, giving yourself excuses, or you can have a victor mindset where you're looking for reasons, and just always look for those reasons. And if someone tells you something can't be done, you know what? It's probably right. They probably can't do it, but it doesn't have to be the reflection on yourself.
That's true. Nicole?
Yeah, so my grandfather used to always say to me, time is irretrievable. That was his quote to fame. And I just think that truly time is never going to stop. So just go after what you want now. I mean, you'll get there eventually, but it's never too early to start.
Fantastic. And Mike?
I think kind of to that point is time is irretrievable. That's pretty good.
It is a good one.
I think that once you find what it is that you want to do, I think you got to work harder than anybody else. I do think the world is a very competitive place. Everybody wants to get what they want. So I think as you leave school, I think the thing that I really took away was you have to really work hard for what you want. 6, 7 days a week, 12, 14, 15 hours a day. I mean, that's just the hard reality of it. So that's what that would be my words of wisdom, is get after it and work as hard as you possibly can to get what you want.
Well, thank you, Mike. And actually, thank you all for being with us today. This has been a great conversation, and I really appreciate our speakers. I also appreciate all the students who are with us from Fresno State, as well as the community members, not only in our own valley, but throughout the United States, that decided that this would be a really interesting way to spend an hour and a half. Two things. I would love to thank, well, I not only love to thank, but it's my honor to thank Gabe and Tina at the Lyle Center for being with me since 2016 as we've continually tried to innovate the Pay It Forward program, and without them, this program would not have flown as it has over the years. And if you're interested in the Entrepreneur Mentor Program, you can contact me directly at my email address, and I'd be happy to share information with you. And finally, stay tuned for spring 2021. We are planning on at least two more webinars of some, since we're not going to be able to meet in person, that we hope to bring you some interesting topics like we have in the past. And please stay healthy and safe, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we will see you in the spring. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.